Yeah, what's the deal with this banning soda that's going on there?
We're not banning soda. All we've done is we've proposed, and our Department of Health's board has to approve it, but stopping people from, in restaurants and movie theaters, selling cups bigger than 16 ounces. It's become fashionable to sell 32-ounce cups, and there's probably more sugar in that than you would use in a normal month of drinking tea with sugar or coffee with sugar. Obesity is becoming the biggest public health issue in the country. Everybody's wringing their hands about it. We're trying to do something about it. In New York City, we have 7,000 deaths from smoking every year, down dramatically from 20-odd thousand. But the obesity deaths have grown to 5,000, and pretty soon will exceed the number of smoking deaths. In New York City, because of all of our public health issues, the life expectancy in New York City is now 3 years greater than the national average. So if all you people in California want to live longer, I'd suggest you move to New York City. Statistically, you will. Giving people information that they can then use to make healthy choices. And we're not taking away your right to buy soda. In a supermarket, which we don't regulate, you can still buy a 32-ounce can of full sugar drinks. Or bottle, but in a restaurant, they can't serve more than 16 ounces in any one cup. You're free to say, I want two 16-ounce cups. But all the studies show that if the portion put before you is bigger, you will eat dramatically more than if the portion put before you is smaller. So we're trying to encourage people to live longer.
But you seem to be, intervening, certainly on these health questions in the city. How much pushback do you get on that, and how do you square that with the general sort of political trends around the country?
Well, my job's not to work at nationwide problems, it's to work on local problems. Obesity is a local problem for us, and that's why we've addressed it. And in fact, if you take a look, mayors across the country are much more activist than state legislators and governors and Washington. Local mayors are pushing environmental agendas on the West Coast and the East Coast and all across this country that you can't find Washington or state governments doing. And so taking on public health issues like smoking or obesity, it's always going to be done at the city level. And my job is to worry about what's right for New York City.
Given all of your digital experience, and there aren't that many, technology founders or pioneers who've gone into government, are there lessons? What lessons did you take from your digital technology experience and try to apply to government? And can we do more?
Well, people have always said to me, what's the difference between business and government? And my stock answer is, business is a dog-eat-dog world, and government is just the opposite. So I don't think there's anything that we do, there's nothing we do in business that's different in a material ways than what you do in the private sector. We have to attract good people. We have to find ways to compensate them. In the business world, you compensate them much more with cash than you can in the government sector, but in the government sector, you compensate them with recognition and respect and the ability to change the world, which is attractive and great compensation for a lot of people. The biggest problem, however, in government in using technology is it is very difficult to understand and to explain the life cycle of a technology project, for example, where you start out and then you have what we would call mission creep. As you go along, you find other things that you could use that technology for, and it would be a waste not to do it right then because it's a lot cheaper than to do it down the road. So the missions expand as you go along. And when you think about innovation, innovation is fundamentally the ability or the process of building something where you don't know what it's going to be like, you don't know who's going to use it, you don't know how it's going to be made, you don't know how you're going to price it, you don't really know whether it's going to work. You just do it. Innovation is done based on instinct. And successful innovators succeed, and Darwin takes out those whose judgment and intuition isn't as good. In the government world, you have to, in advance, specify virtually all of the things that you're using public monies for. And that makes innovation not impossible, but very difficult in government.
How do you take these digital initiatives to change cities? Because that was that's a big push of yours, correct?
Well, my philanthropy works on projects that no one else is funding. That's one of the requirements for our focus. We have a big focus on education and on the environment and on the arts and on public health, but we also focus on government innovation and best practices. And so we try to give grants to cities around the country to hire a chief volunteer officer, for example, and can coordinate all the people who want to volunteer, all the organizations that need volunteers, but where the mismatch because of communications or different skill sets doesn't always work very well.
How do you look at the digitization of cities or city government?
Well, there's some functions that you can. You still have to have a cop on the beat who looks up and down the street and knows who in the neighborhood's doing what and has a feel. On the other hand, cameras do let you look in various places with fewer people. You'd like to have a firehouse on every block. You can't obviously do that for economic reasons and space reasons, but the technology of fighting fires and the technology of preventing fires has grown dramatically. You got to be careful here where you can use technology in government. It helps, but it's no replacement for good quality workers providing a real service, and that's what New York City is focused on. We have a workforce of 280,000 people, and based on that workforce, when you throw the switch, the light comes on, you turn the faucet, the water comes out. We're the safest big city, our life expectancy is going up, our population's record high, tourists come from around the world, and I don't think an awful lot of that comes from technology. It comes from good people who use technology. But in the end, it's a teacher looking at a student, it's a cop on the corner talking to somebody, giving them advice on where the stop to the subway is or where that museum is. It's the sanitation worker recognizing if it's a hazmat device or picking up that extra piece of paper. That's what makes a city, and and it's the people.
What's the future? How do you see like the next 5 years in the news business? Are you satisfied with the quality of the news that you're reading?
Well, there's certainly a financial model that supports high-quality journalism. Your newspaper, the Wall Street Journal, has 2 million circulation, and their ad base is not so bad. It's when you get down to the tabloids that it's a much more difficult business model. The public is not willing to pay, and the advertisers don't seem to think they get the value in print that they used to get. So there's demand for high-quality journalism. I think it's a much different question as you go down to giving journalism that is less in depth, if you will, and doesn't deal with the most serious subjects and focuses on sports and entertainment and fashion and scandal and titillation. That market is very different. There are lots of different venues, and people don't seem to be willing to pay for it. My personal experience is that I've not really gone as much as I would have thought I would to the tablet delivery, if you will. Now, I will say that there's an awful lot of value in being able to touch a word and have a dictionary come up. There's an awful lot of value in being able to jump over and see related stories from related publications. It's a great value when you're traveling to have this stuff. And it isn't that I don't use it. I'm just not sure yet that, and maybe it's my age, but I have not gone to read everything on the internet. I still read 8 newspapers a day. Using chopped down trees.
8
I turn the pages.
8?
What I like is the display of multiple stories at the same time. I've always thought a broadsheet presentation has real value, because in the end, what technology says is you tell us what you want to read and we'll deliver it to you. The fallacy with that is I don't know what I want to read. I want somebody to tell me what I want to read. That person in the news business is called a front page editor. They decide based on the day and other stories what's important, what isn't, and that varies day in and day out depending on what's happening and how the life cycle of a given story or whatever. And then they tell me how important each one is to the others based on placement on the front page and size of the headline and that sort of stuff. And if I don't like the selection of that process, then I go and I pick a different front page editor, i.e. a different publication. But having somebody do that for you, I think, is something that you can't give up. If you say to me, do I care about, or give me a list of stories or topics that you want me, I want you to remind me of, I would be way off what I really care about, because each day things are so different, and we live in a global world, so it's the number of stories I might want to care about, a number of topics, is vastly greater than ever before. And so, you know, the apps I use for a newspaper, for example, when I'm traveling, are the apps that show the newspaper in print form. I just keep going, and it's like I'm turning the pages in print. And if it was bigger, a bigger display, I guess I'd like it even better than that. What I don't do is I don't go to a site where I go in and out of every story. And also, if you remember, what the developers keep forgetting is, at least in my case, the real world. I'm in New York City. I'm in a car every day going from one event to another. I'm running around on the weekend with my kids, that sort of thing. And I don't have 4G or T1 speeds every place I go. So an awful lot of the technology that promises things in a practical sense, I just give up. I just don't have the patience to wait for a story that comes down much slower than the time I have to read the whole story. And I think that the size of the pipeline and the way the pipe is available will get better in time. We forget only, you know, a year ago it was worse than it is today by a lot, and a year from now it'll be a lot better. But the experience in the lab, the experience in your office where you have good Wi-Fi is very different than the experience way out there in the real world.
So
and
is that the government?
All of these things.
This is your last term as mayor, is that correct? Of New York?
The public hopes so.
Okay.
Yes, it's my last term.
What are you going to do? We're going to take 2 or 3 questions from the audience. I know you are on a time constraint. What are you going to do after? Are you going to go back in the news business, get more into the digital business? What are your plans? Are you going to run for president?
I'm not going to run for president. I haven't worked for anybody for 35 years, and at age 70, I'm probably not going to start now. I think I've got the best job in government, certainly in the United States, maybe in the world. And so there's no other government job that's going to be offered to me. Nobody's going to offer me a job where they can't control what I say. And you know me, I say what I believe, whether it's politically popular or not. So there's nothing else in government. My company is run by people smarter than I am. I've always said, I always wanted to hire people smarter than me to succeed me or to work with me, and I think I've done that at Bloomberg LP, so that I'm not going back to the company. So I don't know what I'm going to do other than I'm going to spend a few weeks working on my golf game and my Spanish, which is labors of love, but very difficult in both things. And then I'll see. I'll be living in New York, and hopefully whoever succeeds me in office does an even better job. Hopefully they can take what we did and build on it in the public health and crime fighting areas. Rudy Giuliani brought crime down. We've built on that dramatically. Nobody thought we could improve on crime, but some of it was because of my predecessor and what he left us, and I'm going to try to leave to my successor the tools to go on and to face the big issues. And then I'll still probably be involved in through the foundation and the battle for better immigration rules and for getting guns off the streets and some of the public health issues that we've been talking about here earlier.
Why did you decide not to run for president? There were a lot of people who were attracted to the idea of you running.
A lot of people in tech wanted you to run for president.
Yeah. Why did you decide not to?
Yes. Unfortunately, the number of people in tech is a very small part of the population. Keep in mind, I am adamantly pro-choice, pro-gay rights, pro-immigration, anti-guns in the hands of criminals and minors. I believe in science. And as we all know, that only gets you a certain percentage of the votes.
So that would make you a non-ideal president.
That disqualifies you, those things?
I don't know whether it disqualifies you or makes you non-ideal, but I do know that it keeps you from getting elected. All kidding aside, the structure of American government is a two-party system, and there are these boomlets, whether it's Ross Perot or a whole bunch of people that have tried to mount third-party candidacies. They really don't work, and I suppose if all the stars were perfectly aligned and the two major party candidates said exactly the wrong thing at exactly the right time, you might be able to squeak through, but it is not a practical thing. I'm also 70 years old. I'd like to be able to sleep a little bit. If I could sleep till 6 o'clock in the morning, it'd be wonderful. I haven't done that in 10 years. I'd like to do that for a while.